Hello, a little bit of a different start to this one. There's a match video, but first we're going to talk about the deck. I made a deck called Crayons, which I recommended for new players before. Where is it? It's down here. I updated it for release because it was made before the price changes of release. But I've updated it here now, so if you're trying to run that specific deck again, you can just take these extra updated parts. And I've also got my deck files posted now. So I'll post it again in the description of this one and in a pinned comment. If you want to import deck files that I post like that or from anyone else, all you do is you go to your army list here, and you click the folder button down in the bottom left, and that'll open up a folder with all your deck files in it. And you just download someone else's deck file like mine, just plug it in there, throw it in that folder, and then it should show up in here. Maybe you have to like quit the game and come back, or maybe you have to go to the home page and come back to Arsenal, but it should start showing up. Anyway, so that is an updated version of that deck I recommended, but I've made a sequel to it after having played for, I guess, about a week now since the game came out, which I think is a bit simpler and just overall a bit better. So let's go through it. I call it Crayons 2. I'm very creative, and I want to quickly go through these units quite fast, and then show you a match that I just played of it. So, overall, and I'm going to try to be brief here, overall this deck has two things that it's mainly really good at, which is, one, it's got a very good armored push because it's half of the deck is armored. So you've got Sept trophies, which are very good. You've got basic Septs for more anti-tank work, like tank-on-tank battles. You've got Recon Bradleys to lead your tanks around, and you've got plenty of the Shorad Bradleys as well. The other thing that it's good at is infantry pushing. You have an infantry tab where you have 8 Amtrak APCs, which are pretty cheap and pretty good, pretty fast as well. You got 6 squads of Marines, so many Marines, and I've comboed them here with what they can come in the APCs so that they fit. So if you take the Marines, who are 13 guys, there's 21 seats in the AV, the Amtrak. You can pair that with a Marines plus a Cat Dragon, which is 8 guys, or 21 total, or a Marines plus an Assaultman Small, 21 total. And Cat Dragons are longer range, Smalls are closer range, but they can both do anti-tank. And they both have weapons to support the Marines in an infantry fight as well, because these guys have HE rockets, and these guys have machine guns. Then over here, you have the Marine Raiders. These are your dedicated CQB infantry, who kill enemy infantry really well at close quarters. You want to send them into buildings of enemy infantry. They are 14 guys, so you can't fit them with a Cat Dragon or a Small, because that would take 22 seats, because there's one more guy in the Marine squad. But you can pair them with your mech rifles, AA. And I bring 4 out of 4 mech rifles AA. These are guys with stingers, so that protects you from enemy helicopters. And they also just have, 5 other guys who are just infantry with machine guns and rifles and grenade launchers. And they're 6 guys, so they're not very tanky, but they'll last in a fight a little bit as long as they're not getting focused. And so you can bring in a whole push that's like, 6 Amtraks, and it's all combos of Marines and Cat Dragons and Smalls in those ones. And you can bring in 2 Marine Raiders and Amtraks each, with a mech rifle each as well. And that's a very big infantry force to push in. At that point, you've got a lot of grunt. So those are the two things that I'd say this deck excels at. It's a more pushy, aggressive deck. If you want to play more defensive, Armored Airborne is a great combo because the Airborne's infantry, I think, is better at defending. But Marines are great at pushing. They just push and push and push. They're really tough. They can take a real fight. They've got lots of anti-tank for close range work, the Marine squad. They're very good. You've got Force Recon. I've got them in the CQB loadout so they can kill any other Recon squad they meet, anti-infantry. They can't really deal with tanks very well. The laws, these are light anti-tank weapons. They can only really deal with light vehicles with this. But they're great for clearing out forests, or scanning out forests themselves, because if they run into enemy infantry or recon, you can probably kill them with how strong suppressed weapons are at close range, and the laws will be used against infantry, and they'll fuck them up as well with those rocket launchers. You have Scout Snipers for quieter, not really combat recon, but for quieter observation. You have Cavalry Scouts, which I didn't used to like much, but I use them more now. They're kind of like, think of them like a sniper with a javelin. Don't think of them like an ATGM team. They don't have enough, really, health or range or ammo for that. But just think of them like a sniper who comes with an anti-tank launcher instead. They get a few shots off. They might not kill a tank on their own, but they can contribute in a fight, and they can, pop smoke and APS charges at worst. And these guys are coming in the Recon Bradleys. These things are so good, like I said, for leading the way for your tanks. Make sure that you know that the TOW can't be fired on the move. You need to stop and shoot with it. So attack move is good for these Bradleys if you want to fight with them, because they'll stop and shoot when they have a target. The Lavs, I love these. These are really good. Just cheap. Like, they can't really take much of a punch, but armor-wise, but they have got a good amount of health. They're a transport with 6 seats, so they can track your Force Recons around, your Mech AAs around if you want, in the other tab. They're just really good for that, bring a bunch of snipers and Cav Scouts. They're fast, they have good optics and stealth, because they're kind of like a recon unit on their own with the upgrades. They have smoke. With a little bit of recon, they can actually do a surprising amount. But even without, did I say recon? With a little bit of micro, they can do a surprising amount. But even without micro, they're usually cost-effective. And then we just spam in these cheap units. We have I5 TOW, sorry, which is 130 speed, very fast, one of the fastest in the game. And reasonable optics, 1750. And they've got 6 tow missiles for anti-tank. And I have something similar down here in the vehicle tab. We just have some cheap, these things, M113 carriers with tows on top. Optics aren't as good, this isn't a recon version, but it's a little bit tougher with the slat cage against, artillery and stuff. And the idea with having these cheap units in the deck, something that I really lacked in Crayons 1, is that it lets you have some map control that you forget about. One thing to think about when playing this deck or any deck is that you can only look so many places at once in Broken Arrow. When you first start playing, you might go, oh, I'm so bad because I let everything die, I wasn't babysitting everything. You can't. You can't watch everywhere at once if you have units in different parts of the map. And even if you're watching the same part of the map, you can't be directly controlling every unit at once. So a good thing to do, or at least I think a good thing to do in Broken Arrow, understand the limitations of your focus, and try to play a combination of units where you don't have a whole bunch of units that need attention all at once. Like, maybe don't bring 2 of your best tanks that are very expensive at the same time as you're controlling 2 of your expensive gunships, because these are both units that can die very quickly if mismanaged, and are very expensive and impactful. So maybe in that case, you would park your tanks in cover somewhere safe, and then you would banish the helicopters, or you would wait to bring in your helicopters till you're done with the tanks. In terms of overall play, just something to consider is when you've got these things in combat, try to prioritize taking care of them first. But other than that, I don't want to take too long here before we get into the match itself, because we'll talk about it there as well. Just know that the rest of the deck, we've got like a little anti-infantry engineering tank here for cheap if you want to bring it in with your guys. This is just only for killing enemy infantry, and it's very good at killing them in cover because the main gun ignores cover. It can kill probably light vehicles, but it's basically here to kill guys who are hiding in the building. Again, covered it before, but just to say it again, we have a lot of these basic SEP Abrams without trophy system, without anything. I don't recommend using these against enemy combined forces, or really in most general situations, because without the APS, you'll have a hard time against tows, like enemy ATGMs that are trying to kill you, and you can die very quickly if you're not paying attention. But what these tanks are very good for is being cheap. They're almost half the cost of the best tank. And when you're fighting tank-on-tank battles, you tend to just need more cannons, because you really need to just have enough gunshots that you can break an enemy tank force. And if you don't have enough tanks, if you only have 1 SEP and they have 4 tanks, you're going to lose that fight even if you're a shiny APS. But if you have 3 or 4 SEPs of your own, now you can win that fight. So it's for a different purpose. These are for tank-on-tank battles, like classic tank engagements. And you can bring them to work with your more expensive tanks too. Other than that, yeah, these cheap units are very valuable because I kind of got off track, but the point is, because they're so cheap, you can just put them somewhere and forget about them. I just call them in on my flanks where we haven't got much vision, and I just leave them there to give me map control, so I know there's nothing there. I call them landmines, trip mines. You place them there, and if an enemy unit bumbles into them, maybe they get a kill, maybe they do some damage, whatever. They probably die afterwards because you're not paying attention, but they're cheap, that's their job. They're just little landmines. They go off and they're annoying. Down in the support tab, we have a couple of Patriots, which is very important in a generalist deck for if you're playing in solo queue. If your team doesn't bring the long-range AA, someone's gotta. So you've got these here. I don't bring the Pivads anymore to combo with these, and I'll get into why in the match itself, but basically, TLDR, I think 1 Patriot on its own is enough to protect itself these days. Well, maybe a little bit of micro. These are very important if you're doing anything with tanks. You need your Shurads. These are your anti-air APCs, IFVs, tanks, basically. They don't have any seats. They're not actually an APC here. They're just converted into a full AA unit. But they're really good at dealing with enemy helicopters if you use them correctly. You need them. If you're doing anything with tanks, you need to have some kind of AA cover because helicopters eat tanks up. We have the Gimlers for long-range counter battery with cluster artillery. So I typically am going to be using this either against enemy tank concentrations or against enemy artillery or long-range AA that's very far away because it's got very long range. Longest range already in the game. The cluster can't really hurt infantry, but it can kill vehicles really well. These are my general artillery, paladins. They've got smoke, they've got HE, they've got a few guided rounds. These are just your general artillery for everything. We'll get into these in the match as well. Fit some mortars in as well. If you're a new player, you may not want to try and use all these artillery types at once, but you've got the options, and I could fit it into the deck, so I think it's good. This is the deck I actually like playing with now myself. It's not just for newbies. The mortars, the Dragonfires can be very powerful. They provide another way to get smoke. And if you find yourself in a match that's a bit of a trench war and you just want to get more artillery out, it's nice to have the extra arty. You're never going to run out of tube arty with both these options. We have a couple of supply trucks that can also bring infantry in them, which is really handy. And then we have 4 out of 4 of these lavels, which are like little ambulances. They don't carry much supply, but they're very cheap, so they're very disposable. And you can just bring them all in and drive them around and just drive them right into the fight and not worry if you lose one. Just get him in there with a little bit of a healing package and do some first aid and get in and out. Helicopters. I put in the second gunship. A few people said that, especially if you're a new player, I think there's 2 schools of thought. One is don't give you too many helicopters in air because we don't want to overcomplicate things for you and make you use too many fragile, expensive units that are really easy to fuck up with. But on the other hand, there was another school of thought, as people pointed out. If you only have one gunship, you're probably not going to get a lot of time practicing with gunships because you'd be scared to lose your only gunship, and also, it's just hard to use them. You can't use them in a pair while it's dead, and you've got to wait for it to respawn. You're just not getting as much practice. And I like using gunships in pairs these days anyway. So I cut the Super Stallion out. There's no heavy lift capacity in this deck anymore, which is a bit of a shame. But I cut the Super Stallion out, and we went down to... So we've just got the 2 Ospreys for very high-speed infantry and supply transport. 1 Venom here, which can lead the helicopters in the pinch as a scout helicopter and a decoy. If it goes first, it'll take the attack first, and you can get your expensive helo out while this one, dies or maybe lives. But mainly it's about using these 2 gunships for your attack helo needs. The Viper is the better one. Make sure that you put APKWS on the inner pylons and Hellfires on the outer pylons. Don't do it the other way around, or you pay 5 more for no reason. So make sure you've got them in the right spots there. But the APKWS are just rocket pods that can kill enemy infantry really well. And, lighter targets. The Hellfires fuck tanks up. That's what they're here for, anti-tank. And the cannon is, not that great. If you're down to the cannon, you've run out of ammo, probably time to go home and resupply. And then the Super Cobra is similar, but it's just a little bit worse for a little bit cheaper. Same amount of flares, only 10% ECM, which is how you dodge missiles passively. So it's more likely to be hit by missiles, but not by too much. It's a little bit slower, but the health is the same. Vipers and Super Cobras, they're very flimsy helicopters. They're not heavy like an Apache. You can't really take a hit, so you want to try to be careful with them. Try to be a bit conservative with them. But other than that, they have a very similar loadout. Same weapons. Oh, except the Super Cobra doesn't have the APKWS, which is just upgraded rocket pods. So we have 200 less range. And, a bit less precision probably. Just keep that in mind. Other than that, down to the air tab, this is the last thing. So the F-35 is the jewel of the Marines spec, really. It's such a good plane. I bring it with, I'm trying this out now, 1,000 pounds. I brought a 1,000-pound bomb on a JSOW. JSOW is cluster, it's anti-tank. So it's really good at having a wide AoE, very effective against tanks, no matter if it's, no matter what kind of tank it is. It'll just get through the armor. And they'll apply a lot of malfunctions and do some good damage, but they won't kill tanks on their own. We have a 1,000-pound JDAM as well. And this is good for killing everything else. If you hit dead on the roof of a tank, it will do considerable damage, and it will kill lighter units. Infantry tend to need more than 1 bob to kill them, but it will fuck them up as well. So when you're going in, you only have to press P once, because I've recently learned when you press P, it drops every precision bomb you have if you have different ones. So if you had 6 Stormbreakers, it's all the same bomb. You'd have to press 6 times, P, 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 and click, 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 click. But if you have different precision munitions, each you just press P once, and it'll drop 1 of each precision bomb you have with that 1 click. And that's what you'll do with this one. We have the Prowler, which is just for seed. You should use this ideally in front of your airstrike to make it more likely to survive, because while the enemy AA is dealing with your radar homing or homing in on the enemy's radar missiles here, the harms, they're not shooting missiles at your F-35. So the Prowler can really cover a strike. And the F-35 is very stealthy, so it can usually get away with things as well if used right. The Harrier here is our cheap oh shit button for if enemy tanks are pushing us. We have 4 Mavericks. 2 of these can one-shot any tank in the game, I think, or make it very close. So you basically got 2 tank kills guaranteed here. If the tanks are damaged, you can get, you know, even more tank kills if they only need one Maverick each. You just call it in, click on the tanks you want to see dead, and you might need to click again once you're getting closer if they've moved a lot, just to make sure you're still targeting the right area. But basically, try not to fuck up the strike too close, because if you fuck it up too close, then the Harrier might abort its run. But this thing just comes in and it just deletes a little tank group, which is good when the enemy, especially if you're playing against Russia, players often love to spam scary, bullying tank groups against you. So it's good to have something like this where you can just go, okay, 180 points, it's probably not going to make it out, it's probably not going to survive, but it's going to go in there, kill, or fuck up those tanks for me, and kind of blunt that attack. And finally, we have the Air Superiority Fighter, we have our Hornet, our ASF. This thing's running a bit cheaper than you can usually run it. I haven't got all the long-range missiles, but I've got a very interesting combination here. We've got 2 AMRAAMs, 2 Gunslingers, 2 Sparrows, and then we get 2 Sidewinders for free. And the way this works is, we'll talk about it in the game as well with how overkill mechanics work. But basically, each having different kinds of missile like this lets them all fire independently of each other. So rather than having 8 AMRAAMs or, 6 AMRAAMs and they only fire one at a time, you can fire like a AIM-174 Gunslinger, a Sparrow, an AMRAAM, and a Sidewinder all at the same time, basically, or pretty close. So it's a bit cheaper as well to run the Sparrows because they're not as good. They're shorter range, and if you turn away from the enemy, they'll lose lock because the radar of the jet actually has to guide them in from the nose. You have to be looking at the enemy. But other than that, they're fine if you're going in on someone, and they're cheaper, so it cuts down the costs. The AIM-174s are great for poking from long range and staying safe. The AMRAAMs are just kind of your average air-to-air missile at long range, and the Sidewinders are for close range, and they can hurt helicopters as well. They're the only missiles here that can target helicopters, along with your gun. So enough yapping. That's the overview of the deck and what the units do. Now I'm going to go straight into a match I played just before, where I used this deck. Now, I made a lot of mistakes. I always do. I'm not a perfect guy. But I still think it's a good match to post. One, because I don't want to cherry pick and only show where I do, perfect and flawless and look like a rock star. I think it's important to show average matches for me, and matches where I fuck up and we can talk about it, and matches where I look human, because if you play with this deck, or any deck, especially if you're new to this game, when you play Broken Arrow, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fuck up, you're going to have things go wrong, and one of the most important things you can learn of Broken Arrow is kind of having the mental fortitude to stick at it, find a way to get back into the game, recover, keep your mental game strong, keep positive, keep optimistic, look for ways to keep helping, and never say die until the timer's down. So, I'm kind of making it sound like I fucked up super. Definitely had some mistakes, but, it was a pretty good match to watch still. You'll get to see it now. We'll talk about what I did right, what I did wrong, and I'll try to focus on how to use this deck, especially if you're a new player, and go through the commands I give and the way I actually do it. So, with no further ado, let's cut straight into that right now. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to try to keep this one less yappy than my usual match reviews. I'm going to try to focus on what I'm doing at all times, so that it's better for new players who want to use this deck or just get used to the game in general. A bit more of a tutorial one. So we go on Oil Rush. Oil Rush is a map that favors tanks in my opinion. The trench in the middle is very exposed, so tanks do well there against other unit types, and because the trench is like a valley, it's lower ground than the rest of the map, the tanks can hide in there against long-range threats like helicopters and ATGMs and stuff like that. So it's like a great little arena canyon run for tanks to play in. There is woods and buildings on either side of the trench, but because there's 3 cap zones in the trench, a lot of the match is defined by how well you can play it. And there's a lot of big open areas in this map as well, on either side of the trench, big areas of no cover, which again, tanks are going to do great in. Played against Russians. Russia as a faction has really good tanks as well. We do as well, but Russian infantry tends to be, I think, worse than ours a lot of the time. So you'll see Russian players rely on their vehicles more, I think. And especially early on right now, people like to spam Barbarosses and stuff like that in blobs. And you can deal with them, but they can really bully if you don't know how to deal with them. I put a jet marker down on the map, which I always do at the start of matches to be like, hey, let's do our air tax. Air tax just means bring a fighter to shoot down enemy jets. You want to make sure that you're shooting down enemy jets and then chasing their helicopters if the enemy tries to roll out transport helicopters and cargo drop planes, because you don't want them to airdrop a bunch of paratroopers and steal the map from you before you can get there, because that just makes it hard. Then you got to fight through defensive weapons teams and stuff. It's a real pain in the ass. So I'm going to place my interceptor out. Just before I was clicking on the players icon on the top right, I was checking who has what decks to see what I'm up against and who I have on my team. My teammate is placing some tanks on the right side. They've got some Shura, they've got a nice little like vehicle force. We don't really have anything on the left side of the map just yet, but that's okay. I'm kind of looking at what I want to do here. I'm going, my order menu on the top left, I'm going, do I want to bring in tanks on my own? Do I want to wait and see what happens? Do I want to bring in infantry? In the end, I decide to just deploy my fighter and then wait to call in any other units until I'm done with the fighter. That's fine. Like, if you're, in my opinion, if you're not gonna be doing like a rollout that relies on being fast, like helicopters or maybe like wheeled vehicles, it's fine to just delay your unit buys at the start of the game until after you're done with the airfight. You can kind of see what's going on that way. I call in a Patriot as well at the spawn, and I queue it up to immediately put a radar on to cover my fighter, and then I'm just playing poke sniper standoff with my fighter here. I'm letting the other fighters go in first, and then once the enemy jet is busy with my jets, I'm just sniping from the side with my long-range missiles. I'm clicking on the enemy jet because that overrides the overkill mechanic. The overkill mechanic in this game, we shoot him down, nice, so now I'm going to press B to go back to base. The overkill mechanic is, just quickly, your units will not fire more missiles at a target if there's already enough missiles in the air from friendlies at that enemy that your unit then goes, oh, okay, we don't need to fire any more missiles, they're going to die. But because aircraft specifically have evasion with like flares, it's kind of a dice roll whether the missiles hit them or not. So if you want to be sure that aircraft die, right-click on them, that overrides the overkill limiter, and your unit will fire all the missiles they've got. However, the problem is, it also makes them fly directly towards the enemy, so try not to do it in a way that's going to get your jet to fly towards the enemy lines and die to their AA. Because just like I brought in a Patriot, the enemy will bring in long-range AA to at the start. So I'm moving my Patriot up now that we're done. That was my cover for if I had to run away, it would cover me against enemy jets. But now that that's done, I'm going to call in my own vehicles. I want to play tanks, but rather than calling a tank in first, I like to try and buy the things I need to cover the tank first. So here I'm actually going to do something different. I'm going to bring in the Paladins. I think I was looking at the map, seeing how many tanks we already had, and going, okay, I'll bring in some artillery first instead to try and support my team. But then I start bringing in the artillery right after that still. So I bring in, I should have brought in a Shorad Bradley there, which is anti-air. And then I brought in one of my best tanks, one of my trophies, which is very expensive but very powerful. And then I've called in a Recon Bradley. I'm not sure if I put Recon troops inside of it, but I just called in one of the Recon Bradleys there. And that's going to be my little vehicle force I'm going to go around and try to do good things in Phase 1 with. Meanwhile, I'm still moving that Patriot up. I'm also in the bottom right there. I'm selecting my Paladins, and I'm pressing T to open the fire mission menu, and then I'm clicking short fire mission duration right away. Why this is important is you want to always move after you've been spotted firing from a place, with every unit, but also with artillery, especially, or otherwise the enemy will bomb your artillery when they see them firing. Because when you fire with arty in this game, I'm calling another Recon Bradley here with some snipers inside. When you fire with artillery in this game, or long-range AA, the enemy sees it firing out of the fog of war, even though they can't see your unit, so they know where you're firing from. So it's very important, after you fire your artillery, to move. And I've got my supplies there, so the thing can automatically rearm the Patriot there. I've got the radar on, so I've got double the range against enemy jets that are flying at high altitude. But it does make me weak to seed. We'll talk about that in a second. Right now, just getting these Paladin artillery pieces up close so I can start firing with them. And just driving in my little tank group of the Recon Bradley, the tank, and the Shorad. I'm bringing in artillery to maybe help out with that fight, because I think the Spetsnaz GRU are going to beat the Airborne, but I'm pressing H to hold my fire, because I don't want to friendly fire my friendly Airborne there. So the idea here is I'm going to prepare the aim time on the strike, and then if the Airborne die, I could have just pressed H to loose the volley right away. But as it is, the GRU there, the Batman unit, they actually ran away. So I cancel the strike and put it closer to them instead. Redirect. And my Patriot gets taken out by the enemy seed planes there. Seed is like, they fire missiles that home in on your AA if your radar is on. So in that case, if I'd been a little bit quicker to select my Patriot there and click the radar off, those missiles wouldn't have hurt me, they would have lost target and gone somewhere else. But because I was a little bit slow there, I do lose the Patriot. It's fine. I used to recommend running with the like the pivads in front, which I talked about in my other Crayons video. I don't do that anymore because I did some testing and I felt like if you, or I found, sorry, not felt like, I found this factually, that if you put some defensive AA units in front of your other AA unit you want to protect and you turn their radars on so they can intercept the seed missiles and tank some of the seed missiles, the problem with that is you actually attract more missiles. Because of that overkill mechanic we talked about before, seed planes will not fire more missiles at your lone Patriot with radar on than they need you to kill it, which is like 2. So they only fire 2 at a time, and they can't override that. So there's pros and cons, because you can get overwhelmed by things like ballistic missiles, but without going into it too much, basically deploying one Patriot on its own is actually quite fine. You will sometimes lose it to seed, but you would have lost it to seed even if you had a pivot or 2 defending it as well, a lot of the time. I won't go into the reasoning too much here, but you don't have to worry, basically. Just if you're a new player, just feel free to just bring in a single Patriot, put it further away from your teammates' Patriots, because you don't want to draw too much aggro for those seed missiles. Don't have too many radar units next to each other in that sense if you're doing it this way. But put them off on their own, drop them some supplies so they can automatically rearm, and turn the radar on. If you have time in the matches to turn the radar off, that's fine. But if not, and it dies, it probably got some kills before it died, so it's fine. What matters is you're trying to have some AA up for your team. It's very important to have AA up for your team. We're doing some more fire missions here, doing artillery on that enemy infantry that we can see. And again, I'm very tempted to go into like all the details of like, oh, seed, this and that, da-da-da, but I'm going to have to not here because I want to focus on what I'm doing on the actual map for new players especially. So now that I've brought in the Patriot on the right and artillery is going and stuff like that, I really want to just be focusing on my tank group once they get into combat. I'm kind of trying to find out like where I should go here too. Like it's a little bit early in the phase for me to want to go to the deep zone on the trench there. I do lose my paladins there as well, so let's talk about that. I think I didn't get them away quick enough after I fired. Maybe I didn't drive down the road, so I was slow. But you can see counter battery there, where the enemy artillery is my artillery after they fired. And if the enemy players are good, they'll be really onto it really quick. So you make sure you're always, whenever you're using artillery, do a fire mission with the T menu. You know, click somewhere and get them to shoot somewhere. But then shift right-click a move order. Or ideally, press F and then shift left-click somewhere else to go fast move, so you'll drive faster on the roads. And just get out of there really quickly. That way you'll fire and you'll have a queued up order to leave instantly. I know I'm going through this stuff fast, because I am trying to keep up with the screen. So if you have any questions, please ask in the comments. Sorry it's a bit all over the place compared to my usual commentary because of that, but trying to focus on what's going on. For instance, there was an enemy recon drone there on the left, just in front of the F zone. I was going to say point, but I'm trying to say zone, so it's less confusing. Anyway, fuck it, F point. So, I was going to drive over to the left and maybe try harassing the F point with my tank group, but having seen that that enemy recon drone just saw me, I think it's a bit predictable for me to keep going, so I actually cancel that and I come back behind the G point. If I go out there by myself, I could get killed by an enemy anti-tank hunting jet, like a Frogfoot, or an A-10. Or a bunch of helicopters could come and overpower my single AA tank and really just mess me up. Because I'm really far out there. That's very far away from my team. We haven't got a lot of long-range AA up, especially on that side. So I decide, no, let's not do that. Like, that's... They know I'm coming now. Knowledge is half the battle in Broken Arrow, so let's not do what they now expect. Let's go somewhere else. In the end, I haven't ended up doing a ton in this first phase. We've only got 7 minutes left in this first phase. We're halfway through it. This will happen sometimes. It's not ideal. Like I said before, I make a lot of mistakes in this match. And also, it doesn't go perfectly for me. But this will happen. You will have these games and matches and phases and periods of matches where you're just not really doing a ton. And that's fine. I'll try not to get into it too much here. But it's fine. Just don't rush yourself. Don't get anxious and panic. Don't waste your units like how I just wasted that Recon Bradley there. I was driving that Recon Bradley up, and I wasn't paying enough attention to microing it because that enemy Barbarous in the woods there with the autocannon can kill it from long range with its autocannon. Similarly here, I'm not really fast enough to save my Abrams. There was 2 ATGMs coming in, and my APS can only stop 1 missile every 5 seconds or so. So I needed the smoke there to stop the second one from getting me. But because I'm too slow there, I take damage on my trophy as well, and now I can't push at all. I've really got to fall back. Especially because I've lost both my Recon Bradleys. Without that, I don't really like to take an expensive tank like a trophy and push it up on its own. I typically want to have some Recon in front of it, screening the way. The tank is like the king of the armor group here, but it's not the Lone Ranger. It needs supporting vehicles as well to be really effective. So talking about what I was saying there just before, you know, I'm having an even worse phase now, where maybe I was going to do something and push up to D and secure C and stuff like that. But instead, because of what could have been avoided if I'd microed a bit better, now I've got to spend time calling in reinforcements, healing my tank up. But again, that's alright. It is what it is. We can't then go, oh, I'm doing bad in phase 1, I'm not really doing much, so I've got to go do harder. You can't. You know, if I was being anxious here, I might go, well, fuck it, just push the tank in because I got to do something this phase or I'm useless to my team. And, you know, maybe I am being useless to my team right now, maybe not. But I'd be more useless if I push that tank in on its own. You've got to have a bit of patience in this game, in my opinion. Anyway, again, enough strategy. I'm very, very easy to bait myself into talking about strategy. Let's talk about what's going on the screen again, because I'm missing some important stuff. I'm doing supplies. So supplies is very important. Boring, but important. I've got these Lavels I've called in to resupply my units, and that's how I healed my trophy tank just there. And having dropped those supplies at a Lavelle, I'm going to need more to fill them back up again. So that's why I've called in the Osprey transport. I've filled it with supplies, so it's very easy. Fuck, I'm calling in an airstrike too. I'm doing too much at once though. Beagle, slow down. We'll talk about supplies in a second. First, I'm doing an airstrike. So I see the enemy BRM there. I'm just going to bring in my F-35 with the bombs that can kill the tank here. I'm going to call it in behind, farther away from the target, and I'm going to press P. I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to Shift-click the P order onto the enemy tanks, and I'm going to click Shift-B after that, or press Shift-B after that. And if you queue that up correctly, what you're going to get is a plane that does its airstrike without having to do anything else. It'll fly in, it'll queue up its bombing run, and then it'll queue up a return to base after the bombing run is done. There's other ways to micro it better, but we won't get into that right now. What matters is don't queue up the move order too close to your target. The bombs need time to be aimed. And again, we'll have to talk about supply later, but right now, there is something I can do here. I just finished resupplying my tank and my SHORAD, but the enemy is pushing on the G. They're being very aggressive. They got BTRs, which are light-wheeled, motorized APCs. They're bringing in infantry to take the G point, which I know is going to be there because those are APCs. I know they're making a push. So I'm going to bring in my trophy here to try and help. I know that I'm going to get hit by RPGs, but I know that my APS will protect me. As you can see it popping up, active protection popping up. It can only protect one every few seconds, remember? So I do fall back here, so I'm not getting hit by both the infantry squads at once. I'm pressing R and then clicking to reverse move, so I keep my good armor facing the enemy while I drive backwards. And I reverse behind the building there, so I can keep engaging one of the enemies, while the other enemy can't shoot me at the same time. And there's a lot of terms for this in the tactical gamer community and the real world, like keyholing and slicing the pie. But all it really means is try to position yourself using pieces of cover and things that block line of sight, like buildings and forests, in a way where you're not being engaged by multiple enemies at once, where you're just like killing one enemy at a time. Definitely helps my trophy there, because otherwise I would have taken double the RPGs, and I've already taken a lot of malfunctions there. My optics, ammo, and I think gun sighting, like aiming, is all fucked up there. But I would have taken even more, and I could have been in even more trouble. Now I send in this Bradley with Cav Scouts, because I noticed my ally who's holding G with their Marines there, and thank you very much, doesn't have any recon, so I want to help them get some recon in the area. When in doubt, you want to have recon in front of all of your units. You don't want to have any unit ahead of your recon line most of the time. Like, that's not always true. Like, if you're attacking, obviously it's a bit different. But, like, especially if you're holding a line, try to have recon be your first responders, your first line. Because you need to see the enemy coming before you can do anything about them. And I put them in that tall building so they could see with good sight lines, but unfortunately, the artillery was already hitting the Marines on G, so I shouldn't have gone in there. I should have gone to where I am now on the left, where I won't be hit by the random blasts of artillery if they try to shell the G point again. Just getting my resupplies done here meanwhile. Very important to keep your supplies and logistics going. You've got to keep your supplies coming. That's how you heal your units. And especially because you get charged for, or especially because, you know, you lose more by losing your unit than just getting away wounded and taking a bit of time to heal it. You feed more score to the enemy. It's very important that you take care of your units in this game. If a tank's half health, don't just run it in. Run it back. Withdraw it. Keep your units alive, especially your expensive ones. Heal them up and get them back into the fight. even if the tank hadn't taken any damage, just having used its APS charges and its smoke charges, you go back to a supply dump and you can get those back by rearming there. And the good way to resupply is click on your unit, like I'm doing here. Click on your unit, and then right-click on the supply dump, and then hold Shift, and you can then queue up where you want to go after you've done the resupply. So in this case, you can see I took the Cav Scouts. I've queued up an order where they get inside the building, because otherwise they might have trouble pathing around the building. They get inside the building, and then their next queued order is they're going to resupply, which they're doing now. And then they're queued up so that after they're done resupplying, they will move back to the buildings near the zone to keep their recon up. It's very important to get comfortable with queuing units like that, so that you can not waste time babysitting units at all times. You just give them a plan and they'll execute it without you. What I'm doing right now, as we try to keep up with my play here, is I'm calling in my cheap units. I have a bunch of money. I'm thinking about what can I do with this money, and I'm also thinking I've been pretty anxious about how little recon we have on this left side of the map the whole time. So this is where those cheap units I was talking about in the deck creation part of this video come in. When you have a 55-point unit that has an anti-tank launcher with long range and has decent optics on it, it's a very flexible thing to have in your deck to do what I'm doing now, which is just pretty thoughtlessly send a bunch of them, just put them in cover so they can be little ambush landmines. I called them my interceptor there, but it wasn't needed, so I'll send it back now. And yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought because of the interception. But yeah, you can very thoughtlessly, like, that's like $200, right? 220, 230 at most, right? 220 bucks, yeah. I've deployed 4 of those things on the left side, and now if I hadn't done that, you know, the enemy could just roll up from the F point and flank us, and things could get really nasty. It's not just the low cost, because it doesn't matter if they die, who cares, they're so cheap. It's not just the cost that's good there, but it's also the lack of attention. I don't need to worry about those units ever again, and I won't, most likely. I will call those units in, I will give them one order when I'm calling them in, by clicking where I want them to go as I buy them, and that's it. I never need to look at them again for them to get some value out of being there. Even if they don't kill a unit, just them telling me units are coming from that direction before they die, and maybe getting a few missiles off that waste APS and smoke charges, or even dealing a little bit of damage ideally, or killing a unit. That's great. That's good value for how cheap they are. And just little things like this can help with, like, not when you've got a lot of money but you don't know what to spend it on. This is a great way to help the team out and help yourself out. Now, I'm also calling in some APCs because I try to fight my anxiety so I don't tilt myself into making mistakes. But there's a difference between anxiety and recognizing I'm actually being passive. And right now, you know, I tried rolling around in my tanks to be having a good time in Phase 1 and be useful. I helped out a little in holding the G-Zone. But in the end, I didn't do too much. I'm trying to think about how to resupply my friends' Marines here. But I'm kind of recognizing, okay, the enemy's going to be pretty dug in on their side of the no man's land here. And I'm not having a lot of success rolling around in my tank group. But what I can do here is use the other strength from my deck. Because my teammates are playing very heavy on the tanks already, right? So it's also less necessary for me to, like, just bring in more tanks and try that again here. But what we're not playing super heavy on is infantry. So my plan at this point is to get a bunch of APC infantry and push on to the E point across the trench. But let's take a look here, because meanwhile, like I was saying, we're getting that landmine value right away. The enemy's trying to push some shit down that road, where we set up our recon tow jeeps with long sight lines down rows. They're long-range shooters, so it's ideal for them. You don't want to put them in a wood, ideally, because then you don't get the value out of the tow. You can if you just want the recon tripwires, but it's harder to see in a wood too. So it's good that we have them watching those long streets, and we see that shit coming. I think we kill one of them, and we make them pop smoke and run off. And now we know that the enemy's coming from there, so I think I pinged it for my team. And now we can see this as well. The other tow jeeps, I had 2 of them in case one died, is also watching this flank. It's going to die right now. But before it dies, those brave Marines radio me and say, hey, there's fucking T-90s coming down here. And they also just say something about dying, I guess, but I don't remember that part. I just remember the part of, okay, thanks, there's tanks coming down that road, we should worry about that. And that's useful for my team to know. My teammate who's coming in with the tanks now has some important information for what to deal with there. We know what the enemy's doing on that side. Meanwhile, while my APCs are coming in, I'm trying to provide a little bit of fire support here. I'm trying to predict where this infantry is going to go, so I'm changing around frequently here. They come forward, they go back. In the end, they seem to be going towards these buildings, so I try to predict their path and then artillery it. And that tank group we see, it's not just one tank that we saw, it's actually a whole group, yeah, of tanks. So I'm going to start bringing my tanks, which are finished getting reinforced with new recon Bradleys. My tank and Bradley's group, I'm going to bring that over. and try to help stop these tanks. Because if they push through the left, I mean, someone's got to stop them. I can see my teammate has a couple of tanks of their own, but they're going to need some help to stop these guys, so I'm on my way. We'll talk about the infantry APC push I'm building up later, because again, trying to focus on what's going on here right now, which is, ooh, good reminder to stay unclustered. It's important to move after shooting in this game, because you will get bombed, you will get artillery, you will get fucked up if you sit in one place. It's also very important to try as much as you can to not cluster. You can't always get away with not clustering, because you can't, but try to do that. Let's talk about the micro here. I'm misplaying my Bradleys because they really should have been on attack move there. They were on fast move, and they weren't stopping the fire. And the toes can't shoot unless the Bradley is stopped. If my Bradleys had been on attack move there, they would have got a pair of missiles out against the enemy tanks before the enemy tanks got to shoot me, and that would have changed that engagement very much. As it is, because I'm on the wrong order there, and I'm not really watching the Bradleys enough, I don't know, I was fucking around watching my guy get bombed. Unfortunately, those Bradleys now have to fall back and resupply. But again, I think that's better than driving them in and getting them killed here. The trophy's still good though, so I'm sending the trophy in. I say I don't use it our recon, but I'm not pushing too far ahead of it now, so I'm happy to try and get some shots on these tanks and piss them off. Just like it slows my pacing to have to fall back and resupply now with my Bradleys, it's also going to mean those enemy tanks can't really fight again very well until they've been resupplied, which takes time. So even if I don't get a kill here with my tank, just hitting them, every bit of damage helps. I've got my remaining Bradley that's still alive here. Attack moving properly now and fighting enemy gold players, APCs, and little motorized mechanized forces pushing back onto the G zone. But now my tank, who's been trading a few cannon shots at the tank battle there against the enemy tanks, now they need to fall back. So we're going to queue up that tank soon. We're going to be like, alright, come back and get resupplied. Again, you don't have enough focus to do everything at once in this game, so it's very important, once again, get used to queuing orders. Here I'm queuing up a fast move backwards along the roads, a couple of fast moves to get back to that supply dump. Because if you don't fast move, you won't use the roads and you'll go much slower. And then once we're back at that supply dump, shift click a right click onto the supplies to heal, and then I'll queue up another move to come back towards the front line where I can use you again. So off we go with that tank and its little Bradley escort. And meanwhile, now it's time to talk about our APCs. You know, the tank force goes off and does its own thing now and resupplies, so it's time to do the transports. Now, the APCs here, I was planning to send to the E zone, but I start moving them in there because I'm like, oh, do I need to send them to the G zone to help push those enemy infantry out? But in the end, looks like my teammate covers it with the Marines. We're fine. That attack fails for the enemy, so that's good. So I'm going to start queuing this up instead. I'm queuing up smoke artillery here. Now, smoke is very easy to forget, and when you're a new player, it's fine if you don't do this. But it's easier to learn than you think to use smoke artillery, and it can be very impactful. So, at this time, seeing how things are going, I'm like, alright, I'm actually not going to go into the Amtraks on their own. I think I kind of stopped myself making a big mistake here. I realized, alright, I'm not going to just rush in like an idiot. I'm actually going to tell my team what I'm doing. I'm going to resupply my tank so that it can go in with my APCs, which will just make this much better. Here I'm doing that with dropping supplies from my lab. You can double tap U when you have a transport selected to instantly drop everything, which is very useful. Resupply my tank. I've got my Bradley reinforcements here, and I'm going to send in my Bradleys first and my tank first, and then the APCs behind them to get in across the trench. I know I've got enough time to kind of get away with this because we've got 22 minutes, so the phase ends at 15 minutes, so I've got, you know, like 7 minutes. I'm pretty close. And I know the attack will go better if I'm just a bit patient here and I wait. Now you might notice my smoke artillery hasn't gone off yet either. That's because, again, we're pressing H, we're toggling hold fire, the little red stop sign next to them. They will not fire until I take that hold fire off. So that's very helpful for me pre-planning these smoke barrages. They're going to help me get across the trench into the E zone, into the E point. But not have them fire until I'm ready. Other than that, let's quickly take a minute while I've got a moment here to talk about what's in my APCs. I've got 2 squads in each. So, like we talked about in deck creation, I've got Amtraks with Marines and Smalls, or Marines and Dragon teams in them. And I have 1 Amtrak at the back that I think has Marine Raiders and Mech AA for anti-air. And that's a lot of guys to bring those APCs. If the APCs get killed on the way, you've got 2 squads instead of 1 getting stuck in the open and dying. But I typically like it for getting in with proper force without being all APCs. We're going in now. Really nice rocket artillery from my teammate there. Softening up the D point. I'm trying to rush in with the Bradleys first to lead the way. They're recon Bradleys. They'll see threats on the way and I can adapt based on what they see. I've toggled off the hold fire of my artillery, as you can see, a little while back. So now we're firing our smoke. And I queued up multiple smoke missions from them. I'm not sure if they'll finish in time. But I've queued up multiple smoke missions. So I shoot and scoot, I fire the smoke, then I move, and then queued up already another set of smoke fire missions they're about to start doing. So that's like an all orchestrated plan, but my problem is, in hindsight, really, Bradleys are not good assault units. They're great in long-range fights, but when they get close like this, they don't have the armor to stand up to tank cannons or even autocannons. So really, I probably should have brought in an extra tank to help push the APCs in, and let the Bradleys come in behind, because they're just going to die like this. They're good for, like, reconning, I guess, but I could send a recon jeep for much cheaper to do the same job with the same survivability, honestly. It does let us know that, like, okay, there's a lot of enemy tanks on the left, so I'm going to cross on my trophy here. When I'm in the middle, between the gap and my smoke, I use a smoke charge from the tank, so that I've got smoke everywhere. My smoke is still a bit spotty here, and I probably should have prepared a better fire mission that had a thicker blanket of smoke without as many gaps in it. But we get most of my APCs across. I drop one of my Marines out on the way. You can click on the transport, select it, and then click on one of the infantry squad icons in the bottom right there next to the command panel to drop out just one unit. Unfortunately, that transport then goes on to put my cat dragons into a building of enemy Marines there, and the enemy Marines are better in close quarters, so that's a mistake from me. But the rest of our infantry get into some buildings. I haven't got a lot of infantry left now, so this attack hasn't got a lot of stamina left, to be honest. A bit, but not a ton. We still left some Marines, because we left some Marines back here. The Marines at the bottom of the screen, their APC got killed, that's why they're stuck there. The other Marines I dropped out to fight that tank. I don't know if they're doing a great job of it, but at least they're tying them up. But we haven't, as a result, got a ton of Marines on the point, which is tough. Yeah, we've got the trophy tank, though. We are going to flip the E point. And if my teammates push up behind me, the D point is also going to be open here. I'm calling in another airstrike with my JSOW. I'm pressing N and then left-clicking with the laser. I'm clicking over and over again to keep updating, trying to predict where the tanks have gone. I've lost sight of them, but I can guess from their motion where they're going. It's like a skill shot in League of Legends. And we keep using the laser, because the F-35 has its own laser to laser its own targets. We just have the airplane selected, we press N, we left-click, the laser goes on, and we just keep clicking until the bombs hit the ground. We don't have to worry about microing the plane to escape or anything. We've already queued up that Shift B. Remember, you call on the plane, you hold Shift, and you press P and left-click on the thing you want to die, or where you want the bomb to drop if you're predicting the enemy. So you drop a bit in front of moving vehicles. And then you just use the laser, Shift B after that then, to queue up the return to base afterwards, very important. And then we just, press N and use the laser the whole way to try and make our bombs be corrected as they drop in. Because the bombs will follow the laser there. Meanwhile, I'm pushing the trophy forward. Trying to kill some of the softer enemy units here, the behind-the-lines AA pieces. Killing the Dervish Dyer. I'm in a bit of trouble now here, though, because I haven't got much health left, and that's an enemy T-90, which is a tough tank to face. My armor isn't quite facing properly either. So I reverse to try and get away, but I don't realize that I've actually exposed myself to another pink tank on the right there, that was right in front of my lav there, in the open, and they get a side shot on me and kill my tank. That's war, isn't it? If my camera had been a bit more zoomed out, I might have seen that recon tank earlier, but I was out of smoke at that point, so I think that tank was in a lot of trouble either way. It's kind of the trade-off there, is I push forward, I kill the AA pieces, I kill the enemy vehicles, but then I also expose myself. I could have just left the tank on the E-zone and tried to hide. But in the end, if I had done that, I might have just got bombed as well. When you take a zone, it's pretty common for the enemy to dump a whole bunch of artillery and bombing runs on it, because they know you're in there because you just captured it. So, pros and cons of the tactic there of pushing forward with the tank, but it is what it is in the end. Meanwhile, enemies are pushing in a whole bunch of tanks on the left side. So we're going to call in our Harrier here. This is what the Harrier is for, is when you see a bunch of tanks like this in the front line. You can't do it behind enemy lines because the AA will kill you before you get away with it. But in this situation, my Harrier is pretty cheap, and it's going to get up here and get to, again, I've queued it up, just like right-click on the tanks and then Shift B afterwards to return to base after. Unfortunately, we're going to lose the E-zone. Because we just haven't got anything left there. But watch the Harrier now. Harrier comes in, fires off all 4 of its Mavericks. Takes out, I think, 2 or 3 tanks there. The Harrier does go down. But it gets the job done. Getting the jets away is good in this game, but especially if they're cheap, sometimes it's okay to trade a dead plane for a bunch of enemy dead stuff that cost more than the plane. My pilot gets to eject there too, so that's even better for me. If I pick that pilot up and return in the base, I'll get a bunch of money for that too. I call this multiple answers to that tank group in case the Harrier got shot down before it got its missiles off. So I've also got a bunch of attack helicopters here, which I'm bringing in to try and help. But in the end, I probably should have played them over the right side of G-Zone, because I'm actually flying too close to the F-Zone, which is the enemy's front line, and of course they're going to have SHORAD there. So I immediately scramble, I go low altitude, and turn around and try to get away. Get back down behind the cover of those oil drums and retreat from the enemy AA missiles. And now the enemy is trying to take back the D point, but it's too late. The phase is already flipped, so we get the points for it. We're up 3 points now from the territory control. Kudos to my team for pushing up behind me and taking the D point after I pushed E. Even though I don't hold E till the end of the phase, I like to think that my push through was what allowed my team to then push up behind me and get the D point. So you can still go, okay, maybe my attack on E didn't manage to hold it till the end of the phase, but I was still useful there and I still did a good move because I stopped. Because I allowed my enemy to then push up behind me and take the D point. I made space. But let's watch this right now. We got problems, problems, problems. So the enemy's bringing in a bunch of tanks. They're softened up nicely by my teammates' cruise missiles there. But my Cav Scouts get taken out. I've just got this Bradley on like 10% health surviving. I pick up my supplies so they can't get shot and fuck my Bradley up. And I try to retreat the snipers in the Lavelle before I get overrun. I make a mistake there of not retreating my Paladins because I don't think, oh, there's Paladins there. And then my teammate saves the day with an A-10 strike, just like the Harrier we did before. Mavericks for those guys. And I drive the Bradley out of cover to chase down and kill that very hurt tank and finish it off with a side shot from my autocannon. Autocannons on the Bradley can't really hurt enemy tanks through the front armor, but through the sides and rear, you're off to the races. You can go crazy. So, something to do, something good to do with your autocannon Bradleys if you get caught in that situation. Try to get side and rear shots. Now, I retreat those helicopters. I don't think they're needed anymore, so I'm going to send them back to base to get more money. But I single out the Venom I brought as a decoy, because it's a transport. And I can now come and pick up that pilot, and again, just use Shift to queue up orders. Shift-click onto the pilot, Shift-B afterwards to return to base, and now I don't need to think about it anymore. That pilot will get returned to base in that transport and get me some money back. I see enemy infantry pushing forward here. Looks like VDV, and maybe some Motor Strelky or whatever that other unit is. I'm again trying to predict them with my artillery. Yeah, most of my artillery got killed by the enemy tanks. Whoops, I should have pulled it back earlier. But I've got one left, so keep firing. Don't stop, don't give up. Even if you can't kill enemy units, just suppressing them with artillery can be really powerful. And even just hurting them a bit helps a lot too. In this case, my teammates got some artillery there as well, so I'm just kind of helping out. But hey, still helps to help out. And I know they're there because we've got the recon units, we've got those snipers still there. My teammates got recon around as well, I think, or maybe it's just mine, but I think it's my snipers are helping to spot those guys coming in. So very important to have your recon up front. I'm so tempted to talk about the strategy of how like you need to win the recon war so you can win the arty war and all that stuff, but we can get into that in the other match reviews where I talk about a lot more like higher level shit. Again, just trying to talk about what's going on the screen here. It's not always a good idea to do the exact same move twice because the enemy will be prepared for it. But I do feel in this case that I can get away with doing the exact same move again, but just do it better, because I didn't do it very well. I let my APCs all kind of die and get squished. My infantry didn't really get close enough. And so I'm just communicating with my team here. I'm being like, okay, like, we're not losing in destruction score, and we're already up 3 points. So all we really need to do is win on territory control again to close this match out. We can't let them score like they're scoring right now, because we'll draw. It'll be 3-3. So I've got a bunch of points floated here, which is good. Because now I can bring in a big force. And I'm going to start preparing it back here, because I felt like my convoy got really clustered and squished of each other, which isn't good last time when I made this attack. Because then you'll get bombed and artilleried in one move, and you'll feel like an idiot, and the enemy will be like, ha ha ha, my bomber killed 1,000 points of your shit, and you'll feel really sad. So what I'm trying to do here is make this easier on myself organizationally. by spacing the units out in the formation I want before I command them to go in. You gotta watch out what just happened there to me, where sometimes when you're trying to click on the units to buy, you'll like click through them, you'll click past them, and you'll accidentally spawn a unit somewhere random on the map through the gaps, which I had to cancel. If you right-click on a unit you've brought in, you have a few seconds to right-click it, you'll cancel the order. And so that's basically what we're doing there. I see my teammate's Patriot getting killed on the left, so I go and look at this one on the right and see how it's going. I can tell that it's been effective because it's got low ammo, so I know it's been firing. Remember how our first Patriot died really quickly to seed, but then I went ahead and put that one on the right and just left it there all game? It's been useful, you know? The enemy hasn't dedicated any time to try and kill it, and it's just, you know, it's not actually that expensive. It's like 180. It's just been useful there. Helping out. It's always good to contribute to your team's AA net, especially if they haven't got much. An AFK Patriot like that can, you know, it's like my landmine units, but a bit more expensive, but a lot more impactful. You can really, really help out by having some AFK Patriots. If you have the mental presence and time that you can flick the radar on and off when seed comes in, that's even better, but you don't need to do it. Don't feel like just because you haven't got the time to worry about your AA that you shouldn't bring it in. 180 points for a single Patriot isn't that much money. If it dies, you just bring in another one later. Or if you have two of them right away. It's fine. And you're helping out. You're doing something. Sorry, my chair's real squeaky. So, we can see that we're really winning on destruction score right now. My team's doing a great job of being cost-effective with their kills and deaths. And if I had to guess, usually if you're winning this much on kills deaths, often you're doing better with artillery as well. It's kind of like the two ways I think a lot of matches go, is either your team is aggressive and trying to win on taking a lot of territory, or your team is like a passive trench kind of style, where they're trying to just hold what they've got defensively and turtle. Sorry, I just hit my mic. I hope that didn't sound too bad. Hold what they've got and turtle while they kill the enemy with long-range artillery. Two different styles. You're either hiding behind your shield and sniping of your arty and bombs, or you're pushing forward and trying to take ground. And they interact with each other in interesting ways, but let's not talk about strategy too much. Beagle, bad Beagle. I'm pushing up my scout snipers here, ahead of my push, because I want to know what I'm about to drive headlong into. My formation looks really good here to push in with, and I've been communicating with my team, trying to tell them, okay, I'm going to do it again, I'm going to go in again. Get ready to do the same thing to push in on the Z zone, because I'm going to be busy pushing all the way to E. I've called in an extra paladin artillery here, because I want to, again, do the smoke. I felt like my smoke wasn't perfect the first time, so I'm going to try to have a bit more smoke this time. I'm using the paladins independently, but if you want to just, you know, do a big line of smoke with both your artilleries or all your artillery in the same group, that's fine. You don't have to do separate lines of smoke like I'm doing it here, but you can get as complicated as you want with it, right? The smoke lasts for a good long while. It's pretty big. So you can see here I'm queuing up with the hold fire trick again. I'm queuing up like multiple, like 4 or 5 lines of smoke. And the idea again is once I toggle off hold fire and the fire missions begin, these paladins know the plan. It's to just keep on providing smoke in a creeping line all the way up towards the E zone. And the idea is, as I'm driving through the first lines of smoke, the next lines of smoke are being deployed to help me get in. It's definitely time to go now. Only 7 minutes left in the match, and I don't want to leave it too late. So now I'm going in. I'm letting them know so that they can push with me. I want to be the one that goes in first and takes all of the enemy's attention and takes the most losses. And then my teammates can push in with their more expensive tank groups behind me, hopefully, and hold the trench. Even though I'm only going to be pushing through the D point, I'm also going to let my team know, prepare to push on the B point. Because you can see the same players watching both areas right now, and while they're busy panicking and worrying about me ramming my way through the middle of their line, they're not going to be looking at the other side of the map, the B point. And so that should allow my teammates to have an easier time to get into B. It's kind of like a rising tide floats all boats. It's when you make like a big push in one area, you'll tend to draw the attention away from other areas, and then your teammates can push up too. My chat calls it a morale push when I stream this game. They say, oh, it's time for a morale push, or that was a great morale push, where it's kind of like you're leading the charge with the flag in your hands, and if you make a good, successful charge, your teammates, if they're paying attention, can feel emboldened and be like, oh, we can do it too. So even without communication, they can just go, oh yeah, I'm going to be like you, and you lead by example, and they go, I can do it, I can take my zone, and then everyone pushes across the board. Sometimes you get teammates who just don't pay attention. I've been that teammate too many times, and like you'll just be pushing and no one pushes up with you. But that's why it can help to talk before the plan goes off. But try to be patient, try to plan strategically. You can see how, you know, this attack, I've been prepping it for multiple minutes at this point, and it's only going in now. And once again, I'm going to the Bradleys first. Again, I think next time I play this deck, I will not send the Bradleys in the lead. Because they are just not well suited for it. They take so much damage, poor Bradleys. They're good for tanking ATGMs, but everything else just eats them up, poor Bradleys. And they'd probably be more useful in the back. But then maybe if they went in last, maybe the trophy would die too quick. So maybe they're doing their job, I don't know. Pros and cons. In the end, like we said about doing the same thing twice, the enemy's going to be ready for it. The enemy has seen this trick before, and they're quicker this time in getting artillery to target my smoke. Because they see the smoke is a signal for them he's pushing. And I don't notice it too much because I'm paying attention to these gold infantry on the left, which I have to fight my way through. But I just in time now see, oh shit, I'm driving into a rocket strike. Fortunately, that HE rocket artillery hits my Bradley square on the roof and kills it. And something else unfortunate that's happened here is you see my units are clustering up, even though I did all that work of like splitting them apart. I don't really know why, but I think it's because the Amtreks are too fast and the other units are slower than them. But it's unfortunate because, as you can see, you need to be clustered because artillery is going to fuck you up on the way in when you're driving on a road. Enemy knows where you're going to be. Sometimes it's good to get off the road like I'm doing here now, so that you're not an easy clustered target. Very important because otherwise your assault can stop in an instant with just one good artillery strike or bombing run. But let's focus on this now. I'm dropping off infantry as I go in here and using my smokes to try and get past the tanks. I've only got the one trophy tank here, and with how many enemy tanks the enemy has, I should have played more tanks than just one. But somehow I'm going to get away with it here because my lead transport drops off its Marines and Cat Dragon in the open, and they can help the trophy here to fight the enemy tanks. It's pretty fucking bloody awful for these infantry, just being in the open fighting tanks with no cover. But hey, you're Marines. You didn't come here to fuck spiders. You came here to... well, that's Australian, I guess, but you didn't come here to fuck around is the point. They're just helping out. Everybody's taking damage now, but we're doing our best. We're popping smoke to get in. I'm trying to micro the assaultments more to get on the flank of the Barbarous while the Marines tank it from the front. Unfortunately, the enemy orange infantry there is going to kill the smoke before we can really do it, though. Just trying to, like, micro the units where they're needed right now, but it's hard. I pop smoke on the Marines and Cat Dragon. They got their APC killed there. And I sprint the Marines in to get inside that building, which will turn off the ATGMs. When a weapons squad is engaged in close quarters like this in CQB, they can't fire their long-range weapons, I believe. And they can't use them against you either, which is why Cat Dragon loses in building fighting. If you're in the same building as the enemy. Yeah, I'm being like, we got this. You can see on the right side, we're taking the B point. Perfect for my team. Light green over there, neon green, is pushing with their tanks. And they neutral at the point. Just remind everyone to watch out for clustering, so we don't lose in one good bomb strike. I'm trying to spread out as well. It's easier said than done, but I'm trying. My tank's still alive. I want to bring it up and help out, but I also don't want to lose it and feed destruction score right now, because we might win on destruction score. So I'm actually pulling the tank back here now, while I don't see any good targets for it, to go and resupply and come back for the end of the game. These guys who got out earlier, this Marine and Small at the start, who I dismounted so that they could deal the gold infantry in those buildings, I'm going to push them up now as well. And P Green, what is that, Mint Green here, is pushing up to take the E-zone with me, with their tanks, fuck yeah. This is kind of like the aftermath, the calm after the storm of the assault, where I'm just trying to spread all my hurt units out. If there was more time in the match, if this wasn't the end of the phase, this would be a great time to get supplies in to heal them so they're ready for incoming fights. I still am trying to do that, but, you know, it won't matter as much because the game's about to end anyway. And it takes time to get them resupplied, so it might not come in time. But you can even see, even that quarter health Marine unit in the woods there is killing a K-16 Boomerang. They might even get their AT-4 into that tank. I'm watching it. Yep. Well, no, that was Mint Green's tanks, but, you know, they were about to help. I couldn't think my Marines were going to help. Bringing in my Laval ambulances. Again, this is what they're so good for. They're so cheap and disposable. You don't have to worry about, like, bringing them into a combat zone. Maybe they die, maybe they live. But you bring in enough of them, some of them will get through and heal your units. Again, don't think of these like traditional logistics like supply trucks. Think of Lavels like your combat medics. These are your guys who run into the danger, like paramedics, and do first aid for everyone. It's very important. I lost the Cat Dragon on the right, not microing it, was getting killed by a helicopter. I think my AA troopers in the back there in the tree line just didn't have an angle on that healer for whatever reason. Or we killed it and I wasn't paying attention either way. But yeah, just the important thing now is we just need to hold on to the zones we've taken for a minute and we easily win. You can see at the top we've got 6 points from flags and 3 points from KD, so my team's doing very well. They carried me through the first phases where I wasn't doing so great. And they're doing such a great job working together with my pushes now in these later phases. So props to them. Thanks to all 4 of them for being great teammates. Thanks to the enemy for putting up a good fight as well. It was a great match. And you can see right at the end here, my trophy did have time just barely to heal and get in here, which could have mattered if we didn't have anything of a little less on the point. Sorry, stuttered my words. If all my shit on the point had been bombed and clustered and we needed someone else to hold the zone to get that game-winning, like, buzzer beater, hold the zone until the time ticks down, the trophy would have been here to get in there, just barely, you know, maybe help out. And that's about it. It's all the compliments now for my team. And there we go. Nice commanding win in the end there. Big wins on KD. Good trades, good artillery, good strikes. Big wins on zones. Pretty well timed assault. Maybe it could have been a little bit earlier, a little bit later. But pretty well timed, and we closed it out. No, I was very pleased to. So like I said, as you can see in that match, I made plenty of mistakes. And there was, you know, big parts of the match where I wasn't really that useful, I would say. You can see my score reflects that, where I have a pretty reasonable score, but not the highest. And my KD, you can see that I don't have as many kills as Sierra, who did a bunch of great kills and got us all the destruction score. And you can see a lot of zone captures from Andrew and Mal, and Sneaky Bilbo really high kills as well, and a lot of air kills as well, doing a lot of good bombing. But that's fine, you know, like, it was important for me, I think, as with this game, to learn, don't let your anxieties get the better of you. Because even though I'm maybe not being the most useful, it's fine. The point is, you can't be more useful than you are. You can't force yourself to suddenly not have made the mistake you just made. So, in those moments, especially earlier game where stuff isn't worth as much, like objectives aren't worth as many points, it's the early game, it's the skirmish before the real impactful battles later on in the match. It's good, and I would advise to you, don't rush, be patient. You need to be able to go, okay, well, I'm not doing great phase 1, but I'm not going to throw and make it worse. I'm gonna be patient, I'm going to be responsible, I'm going to fall back, heal my stuff. I'm just going to keep looking for new opportunities to get back into the game and be useful eventually. And in the end, I think we did end up being useful. Oh, Marines friendly fire, oh no. In the end, I think we did end up being useful. We, you know, got carried with our team at the start, and we weren't the most impactful there. But we helped out a little bit where we could. And then in phase 2 and phase 3, I think we were quite useful in making those big pushes across the trench to make a bunch of space for the team, flip zones where it mattered. And yeah, you know, just in general, help drive the tempo and initiative of the game at that point. So, I'm just scrolling slowly through the kills and losses here. Generally, when I'm reviewing my own play, if I see enemy units that got a lot of kills on me, like a lot of points value, that's obviously a bad sign. But in general, if I mainly lost cheap things to expensive enemies, or I only lost like 1 unit to 1 unit most of the time, I'm pretty happy with that. You know, that's not allowing any enemy units to run rampant on me. And the same thing with my kills. I'm looking for units that got a lot of value, like cheap units killing expensive enemy units, or my units that just killed a lot of stuff and lived for a long time. That's what I'm looking for to judge how my own micro and stuff like that went. But I hope that match, you know, mistakes, warts and all, kind of shows a bunch of things, I guess. One, the different ways you can play this deck, its different strengths, and it's pretty generalist. You kind of cover all your bases, so shows all the different things you can do with it and how you can do them. Hope it shows the importance of good micro and the downsides of bad micro. When I wasn't babysitting units that I should have, or when I was babysitting units and I kept them alive longer. I think it should show the importance of smoke, obviously. Smoke is, again, you don't have to throw it in if you're not ready for it. But as you can see, if you've got time, it's not that hard to set up. You can just press T twice. Just keep pressing T to cycle through your different fire modes. You'll go HE, smoke, and if you have precision strikes, you go precision, and you'll see them get highlighted in the bottom right. And I've found smoke a lot easier to use now that I don't have to click it. I just know I can just press T, and then press T again to get to the smoke. And then, you know, I usually reset to HE after I'm done with the smoke, so I don't accidentally panic grab my artillery, and then, you know, smoke the enemy as a default. I don't want to do that. I think in general, apart from all that stuff, just try to be patient with this game. It's not Call of Duty. It's not StarCraft 2. You're not always going to be making, like, fast, flashy plays. You're not always going to be doing something. Sometimes you have to accept that there's travel time, there's resupply time, there's patient, slow recon time, there's looking before you leap time. You know, sometimes it's time to just go the fuck in, but not always. And you've got to be comfortable with letting time pass without immediately doing anything that's like scoring you points right now, because you're building up for your moves that are going to come more measured later on. Other than that, again, I apologize for jumping between my thoughts a lot with this particular review. I'm like, well, I do it with my other ones as well, but I try to finish my trains of thought more in my other reviews when I can get away with it. And in this one, I was just really trying to make sure that I stuck to the action on the screen as much as I could and talked about the hotkeys I use and things like that for new players. So hopefully I did an okay job of that, but it's hard because there's a lot going on in these matches and you don't have to do as much. You don't have to do as much as I was doing if you're new. You can just do a few things. You can just focus on the Patriot stuff I was doing. You can just focus on the artillery stuff I was doing. You could just focus on bringing in some infantry and leaving them in buildings to slow down the enemy. You can just focus on the recon jeeps I was doing. You don't have to do everything at once. Typically, if you want to be handy in the match, try to do more than one thing. Like, don't just do artillery. Try to do artillery and Patriots. Or try to do the recon jeeps, dot them around. Try to leave some cheap infantry in places to be landmines. But in general, especially when you're new, try not to focus on too many things at once either. Just like, 9 out of 10 of your units, or like 7 out of 10 of your units can just be units you bring in once and leave in a place that's in cover and forget about them for the rest of the match. And then just focus really hard on getting a lot of value out of your other 3 expensive units, if that makes sense. Just let the cheap shit sit there and do its job on its own. Focus on your expensive shit. And as you get better at the game, you'll be able to focus on more things at once. But you'll never become someone who can just be omnipotent and just see everywhere at once, Like, that's not something you need to aim for. You'll always have that limitation if you can only look at and control one place at a time. Even the best, StarCraft pros can only do one thing at a time. They're just very quick at, multitasking when they do things. But they're always only, able to click one click at a time. Even if those clicks are very fast, you'll be the same. But, take it baby steps. A little bit at a time. Start small, and then add up more as you go. This deck, I believe, I like Crayons 2 more than Crayons 1. I believe this deck gives you the tools you need for success. I guess final thoughts there too. Try to recognize your weaknesses with this deck as well. Is that your infantry are all kind of expensive, except for the Mech AA. So you could leave the Mech AA around on defense, but the Marines and stuff like that, you can leave a couple around in a place you expect to be attacked. But, because they cost more than cheaper squads, you may not want to just leave them all over the place. So you're probably a bit worse on defense. Your ATGM, the dragons that I put in the Crowns 2 deck rather than the long range sabers, they're great for assaulting with, but because of their low range, you wouldn't want them watching like a wide plains because the tanks would outrange them. Stuff like that, like you're not as strong on defense as an airborne specialization would be with their infantry, but you're very good at pushing with your infantry, and you're very good at pushing with your tanks and Bradleys. So, stay active, get out there, move around. Moving is also a great way to avoid being hit by enemy artillery and bombs. Stay active, stay unclustered, stay spaced out, shoot and scoot. And, if you're having trouble with assaults, just try with the Patriots and all that artillery support first and recon. But once you've got used to that and you're ready to start making moves, hey, try attacking places. Try and put the hurt on the enemy. And I'll probably play more matches of this deck in the future because I quite like this deck now. So we'll talk about that more in the next one, I guess. But again, if you have any questions, because I did jump all over the place and I probably didn't finish some thoughts, please do ask in the comments. I will try to help you with as many of them as I can. I haven't replied to my comments in a little while because I've been busy playing, but I'll try to reply to them soon. And yeah, more videos soon. I'll try to do more match videos like this, as well as more videos that are about explaining things like mechanics, new decks, da-da-da-da. You get the idea. So, more soon. Anyway, thanks so much for being here. Hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know your comments and thoughts down below. Check the description for important information and deck files and stuff, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks so much for being here, everyone, and GG to everyone in the match. See you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.